Welcome back to the Real 411. I'm Dr. Chelsea McGee, and today we're diving headfirst into the complicated web of diplomacy, war, and policies that might soon define the global balance of power. Now, make no mistake, this isn't just about Russia and Ukraine. The storylines we're unpacking today ripple far beyond Kiev, stretching all the way from Washington to Beijing to New Delhi. Let's start with Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal. Their recent visit to Kiev brought back a plan so bold, even Washington is taking notice. A proposal to slap 500% tariffs on any country buying oil, gas, or other critical goods from Russia. Yes, you heard that right, 500%. And with over 80 Senate co-sponsors, it's got bipartisan backing. But here's the real question. Is this the start of genuine action? Or is this just Washington playing political theater, as it so often does? And then there's China and India. These two play a pivotal role here, buying up the discounted Russian oil that fuels Putin's war machine, while the world's biggest democracies are watching from the sidelines. It's like a global game of chess, where every piece moved drags us further away from finding real solutions. And if you think these energy deals are just about economics, let me tell you, they're so much more than that. They underpin the entire strategy to squeeze Russia financially. Now, in Istanbul, you'd think peace talks might offer some hope. But let's be honest, they're being called a charade for a reason. The Ukrainians are pushing hard for ceasefires, while Putin seems content to bide his time, strategize, and gear up for another offensive. Stalling tactics? Most likely. And the human cost of all of this? It's relentless. Over 20,000 Ukrainian children deported to Russia. Just think about that for a second. It's not diplomacy. It's exploitation on a massive scale. So, where does that leave us? Are these sanctions a pivotal moment of progress, or are we, once again, just standing still while people suffer? As always, the real story, the one that needs discussing, isn't just about the headlines. It's about what these decisions or indecisions mean for our principles, our allies, and yes, our own role on the world stage. Let's start breaking it down. All right, let's dissect this bipartisan effort to cut off the Russian war machine. Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican, and Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat, they're not exactly political twins, right? But even they recognize the stakes here. Together, they're championing sanctions so aggressive, so unparalleled, that they would hit any nation importing Russian oil or gas with a 500% tariff. That's right, 500%. It's not just a jab. It's a potential knockout punch targeting Russia's economic lifeline. Now, this push isn't coming out of a vacuum. These two senators just returned from Kiev, where they met with President Zelensky, and the devastation on the ground, the airstrikes, the mass deportations, the children stolen from their families, it's all more than just reports on paper. It's visceral and it's urgent. Zelensky himself has welcomed this legislation. He sees it as a way to not just sanction Russia, but also deliver a clear message. Funding aggression will come at an unsustainable cost. Of course, this kind of unity in Washington is rare. Let's be honest, we don't always see Democrats and Republicans walking hand in hand these days, but when they do, especially on something this impactful, it reminds me why bipartisan efforts matter so much. Years ago, I worked on a healthcare equity initiative. It brought together groups on complete opposite ends of the ideological spectrum. And you know what? For once, we weren't squabbling over egos or headlines. We were solving problems. It felt transformative, and there's a similar energy here with this sanctions bill. A recognition, finally, that some issues transcend party lines. But then, here's the tricky part. For all the boldness of this proposal, it still faces hurdles. President Trump's mixed signals about whether he'll support the sanctions, that uncertainty alone might slow its passage. And remember, it's not just about writing legislation or publishing moral condemnations. Real change comes when world leaders act decisively and in unison. While Congress deliberates, people in Ukraine remain under siege. Every delay has real human costs. So, are we on the brink of something groundbreaking? This sanctions effort could reshape the global response to Russia's aggression. But as history shows us, momentum is fragile. Will this bipartisan moment endure, or could it falter under the weight of political posturing? That question, unfortunately, looms larger than the headlines would have you believe. All right, now let's talk about the critical roles China and India are playing in this global standoff. These two nations, which collectively account for about 70% of Russia's energy exports, are buying up discounted Russian oil like their economies depend on it. Because, well, they kind of do. It's not just a lifeline for Putin's war machine. It's a direct challenge to U.S.-European sanctions. Think of it as an economic version of chess, where one player keeps sacrificing pawns just to stay in the game. Now, here's where it gets tricky. The sanctions legislation spearheaded by Senators Graham and Blumenthal proposes a massive 500% tariff on countries that continue purchasing Russian oil, gas, uranium, you name it. The idea is to choke not just Russia's income, but also deter these other nations from fueling the Kremlin's aggression. It's ambitious. Some might even call it audacious. But the question is, will it work? Or will it drive countries like India and China further away from collaborating with us? Take India, for instance. They're walking a tightrope here, relying heavily on Russian oil while simultaneously trying to maintain favorable trade relationships with the United States. And let's not forget the diplomatic juggling act. President Trump hinted at the potential for a new deal with India, even as tariffs loom in the background. But how long can these negotiations stay in balance when the stakes are this high? And what about Pakistan? Talks with them are also in motion, but any disruption between these neighbors, well, you can see how this becomes more than just a sanctions issue. It's a geopolitical minefield. Personally, I'm reminded of a Ukrainian patient I treated last year. Her family once thrived on cross-border trade, moving goods between Ukraine and its neighbors. That income disappeared overnight when the war started. It's stories like hers, these personal, tangible losses, that remind us sanctions and tariffs aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They ripple through lives, shaping futures. And if these measures don't succeed in actually restricting Russia's aggression, then what are they really achieving? And let's be real, hitting China with tariffs, it's like throwing a rock into an active volcano. Sure, you might make a splash, but the fallout could be monumental. How does this impact global trade, commodity prices, or even the fragile alliances we've spent decades trying to build? Let's talk about peace talks now. These sessions between Ukraine and Russia in Istanbul, they're being promoted as progress. But let's not kid ourselves. The evidence suggests otherwise. Time and again, we're seeing this pattern. Russia comes to the table and offers nothing concrete, just buying time while they plan the next offensive. It's a calculated strategy, not a roadmap for peace. And let's be clear about what's at stake. For Ukraine, these talks hold a terrifying truth. Failure to secure meaningful agreements could mean more land loss, more lives uprooted. NATO, too, finds itself walking a tightrope. How far do you push to back Ukraine before provoking all-out escalation? And let's not forget the broader implications. What message does this send to the world about standing up to aggression? If we falter here, it's not just Kiev that suffers, it's global security. Now, let's confront the most gut-wrenching issue, the mass deportations of Ukrainian children to Russia. Over 20,000 lives forcibly uprooted under the guise of wartime operations. These aren't just numbers, they're futures, stolen. When a child is taken from their home, their family, their culture, what do you even call that? Diplomacy? No, it's state-sponsored heartbreak. It's an attack on humanity itself. And here's the part that infuriates me. These actions are happening while leaders sip their coffee at negotiation tables, debating sanctions and territorial claims. The human stories, the raw pain, they get reduced to bullet points. Well, I'm here to remind everyone. These so-called talks have faces, names, and lives tied to them. If we can't anchor diplomacy in accountability and the most basic moral truths, what are we even fighting for? Ultimately, it's on all of us, leaders, nations, people, to demand more than just dialogue. Because without accountability, talks are just hollow words, a sideshow while the real tragedies unfold. And let's be real. If Putin's not serious about peace, what's the point in pretending he is? So, here's the reality. Sanctions without follow-through, they're empty. Peace talks without accountability, they're nothing but delay tactics. And bipartisan visits, no matter how promising they sound, mean absolutely zero if they don't result in real protection. Protection for Ukraine, for democracy, and for the innocent lives left in the crossfire. And let me emphasize this. We're not just talking about strategy here. We're talking about moral clarity. What kind of world are we building when leaders can allow aggression to go unchecked? When diplomacy becomes just another way to kill time instead of saving lives? This isn't a question for historians to dissect one day. It's a question for all of us in the here and now to answer collectively. The stakes couldn't be more urgent or the consequences more permanent. Look, history has shown us time and again what happens when action gives way to silence. It's time to demand more from our leaders, from ourselves. Leadership should mean decisions, bold and uncompromising, that reflect what's fundamentally right. It should stand for something more than just political expedience. And right now, every decision being made for Ukraine and for this conflict is a decision that shapes not just their future, but ours as a global community. And as we wrap up today's episode, let me leave you with this. If this moment teaches us anything, it's that action isn't optional and silence isn't passive, it's complicit. So let's make some noise. Let's hold every hand that shakes at those tables accountable. Let's call out every delay for what it is, a betrayal of human dignity. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. Your voice, it matters more than you realize. Share this episode with someone out there who still believes leadership should mean action. And if you haven't already, subscribe to The Real 411, where we promise you this: more truth, less noise. I'm Dr. Chelsea McGee, and remember, the story is never just the headline, and we should never settle for anything less than the full truth. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay driven to make a difference.